NFL draft is over, so let's look at some of the winners and losers at the wide receiver position. Not going to break down the rookies in this video. We've already done that. Let's take a look at some of the veterans already on NFL teams who might see their stock go up or down based on what just went down. And I think one of the big winners has to be Allen Robinson. We've been talking all his career about how he just hasn't had a good quarterback, and now, well, he might finally have it with Justin Fields. Everyone is so thankful that the Bears moved up to take Fields. This has to help Robinson, even if Fields isn't on the field in 2021 early on.
Yeah, definitely. Allen Robinson was in my I think he was in our early top 10 wide receiver rankings. And then when they went out and signed Andy Dalton, we dropped him out of the top 10. I know I did. I had him, I think, at 12th after Terry McLaurin. But now, with Justin Fields potentially, I mean, I know there's still talk that Andy Dalton's going to be the starter, but for how long? How long are you going to keep Justin Fields off the field, with Andy Dalton? So I've pushed Allen Robinson back up ahead of Terry McLaurin as much as it's paying me, back into the top, 10, 11 wide receivers. So definitely this is great for Allen Robinson.
Now, look, let me just throw this out there. Is Andy Dalton really the worst thing? As far as fantasy value, I mean, is it going to be worse than with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles? I don't think so. He actually was able to at least put up some decent games last year in Dallas behind that makeshift offensive line, and it was just a disaster. So, look, even with Dalton as a stopgap and then Fields taking over at some point, at least we see the future is bright for Robinson. At this point, maybe we actually hope he stays in Chicago. Now, Marquise Brown, opposite situation here. This is a guy, Chris, I know you've been fading ever since he landed in the league with Baltimore. He's kind of a one-trick pony, right? He can go deep and go get it once in a while, but he's just not a reliable fantasy performer. Well, now he's behind Rashad Bateman, most likely, and they drafted Tylan Wallace. This is a team that is looking to add depth at wide receiver. They did it, which means I think we can pretty much ignore Hollywood.
Yeah, can we finally stop with him? He doesn't even need to be drafted anymore, right? He wasn't even fantasy relevant before. I know people, he's got this, he's got that. No, he'd have like 1 or 2 games a year and that was it. Now he's officially not fantasy relevant, doesn't even need to be drafted, doesn't need to be on your radar. We're done with Marquise Brown finally, right? Are we finally done with him? Can I say that? Is it okay?
I think it's okay. We can definitely stop talking about him. But there's another Brown we definitely going to talk up. If it's possible for A.J. Brown's stock to go up anymore, it did. I find it amazing to believe that, look, the Ravens took Rashad Bateman. The Titans were supposed to take him in the first round, right? He would have been the perfect fit. Well, they didn't even take a receiver till round 4. And it wasn't even a guy that was in most people's top 20 rankings as far as rookie wide receivers, talking about Des Fitzpatrick. So what is going on here? Are they just going to give A.J. Brown the ball every time they throw it?
They should, right? They should if they're smart. He's a beast. Look, this is great for A.J. Brown. I've pushed him up ahead of DK Metcalf. I know that's going to hit you right in the heart, but I've put him ahead of DK Metcalf now. And honestly, I'm inching towards moving him ahead of Stephon Diggs even. I know this isn't a super high volume passing offense, but it doesn't matter because he's going to get all the targets. He's going to have like a 30, 35, maybe even a 40. Well, that's probably crazy, but he's going to have like a 30 to 35% target share in this offense. And we have seen what this guy can do with the ball in his hands. He could literally be looking at 8, 9, 10 targets every single game, if not more. So I've moved him way up. And like I said, I'm sorry. I know it probably hurts you to your core, but he's ahead of DK Metcalf now for me.
I don't put anybody ahead of DK Metcalf. But I get what you're saying. I mean, he firmly top 5 receiver. And it was possible his arrow was just going up. Now, different situation for the Jets. They drafted Elijah Moore, one of my favorite receivers aside from Bateman in this class. Does that mean the end of Jamison Crowder in New York? A lot of people speculating that he's going to be released just because, well, he costs a lot of money and he does the same thing Elijah Moore does, and Elijah Moore is a lot younger. So is Crowder going to find a new home in 2021?
I mean, probably, but will it be as good as the situation he had in New York? Probably not. Not that, people are going, Adam Gase, Sam Darnold, but he got force-fed targets. Wherever he goes, probably not going to be the case. So, yeah, this is definitely, bad for Jamison Crowder, his fantasy value. He's been one of those guys that's kind of been like a sneaky, late round or maybe even a waiver pickup guy in PPR leagues, but I think those days are behind him now.
Yeah, he's, I'd say, but one of those kind of replaceable guys, reliable based on volume. If he's getting a ton of targets, he's going to produce, and it just doesn't look like that's going to happen unless he happens to get released and latch on with a team that needs another guy, maybe a team like Seattle or something, but that's a big what if at this point. Let's go with an easy one here. Clear winners. I'd say winner after the number one pick in the draft was every single Jacksonville Jaguar receiver, because now they have Trevor Lawrence, who could be a generational talent at the quarterback position. So you go with DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault. Basically, they're all going from Gardner Minshew / Jake Luton / Mike Glennon to Trevor Lawrence. I'd say that's a clear win.
Yeah, not only that, people speculated that the Jaguars might have used one of their bazillion picks that they had in this draft on a wide receiver, and they didn't. So it looks like it's these guys. Definitely, it's just going to come down to, does Trevor Lawrence focus on one guy more than the others, or does he spread it around? But you got to feel good about all three of these guys heading into 2021, because definitely much better situation than they had last year. Except for maybe Marvin Jones, who had a great situation there in Detroit, but hey, he's going to another great situation, so good for him.
Yeah, I'd say I still have some interest in Marvin Jones for sure, if Lawrence turns out to be as good as everybody thinks. Talking about last year's number one pick at quarterback was Joe Burrow. It's a crowded receiver room now because he's got his old buddy Jamar Chase in town. Well, that's great for him, but that's not so great for the receivers that were already there. Talking about T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, who were looking like really solid wide receiver 2 types in fantasy. What happens now? Because now you have 3 really good receivers, but there's only so many passes to go around.
Yeah, this is such a tough situation for me because Higgins and Boyd are really good receivers, but apparently so is Jamar Chase. So, how is this going to play out? I'm not really sure. I do know it's going to have to knock Higgins and Boyd down to some degree because, like you said, I mean, when you have 3 really good receivers, there's only so much to go around. They can't all get, 150 targets, 100 plus targets. So somebody's going to get left out, and it could just be all 3 of them get knocked down a bit. So, Higgins was a guy I was drafting a lot of, and Boyd to some extent because of their value, but now I'm not so sure. I haven't seen how far they'll drop in drafts or if they will, but definitely hurts each of their value.
Yeah, and I think the best recent comp is you look at Dallas. As soon as they took CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup kind of started to fade. They were talking about preseason, and as soon as Lamb fell in their laps, we saw him kind of reserved for like just a deep role only. He wasn't fantasy relevant, even when Dak was healthy. So who's going to be that guy? Is it going to be, T. Higgins is going to fade, or is it Chase who's going to be that guy? Maybe year one doesn't see the same type of targets as Lamb. Who knows? But yeah, definitely 3 is a crowd at this point. Now, San Francisco also got their quarterback of the future in Trey Lance. So that has got to be an upgrade, I would think, over an always injured Jimmy Garoppolo. So arrow pointing up for Deebo and for Brandon Aiyuk?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is great. I was a little nervous that it would be Mac Jones, in which case I would not really be on Deebo or Aiyuk, but with Trey Lance there, even if they start with Jimmy G in the early part of the season, I know a lot of people say, oh, Trey Lance isn't ready. Well, I don't think it matters because I don't believe that San Francisco traded all those picks, moved up to number 3 to draft a guy who they wanted to sit for a year or 2. It just doesn't make sense to me. He's going to play sooner rather than later. And yeah, he's a dynamic playmaker. Obviously, the jury's still out as far as his arm, his accuracy, but he's going to add a huge new dimension to this offense that they haven't had before. And that's just going to be great for everybody.
And everything we heard out of San Francisco's camp after they made the selection is they loved his IQ, his football IQ, saying that he is pro ready. And so you'd think they would have invested that kind of draft capital moving up to get him if they didn't think he was ready to contribute this year. This is a team that's not looking to build over the next season or 2 or 3. He's going to make a difference this year. And then let's start with our final loser. Let's finish with our final loser here. I think every Giants receiver has got to be considered a loser at this point because adding Kenny Golladay is one thing, but then adding Kadarius Toney, which nobody expected in round 1. I mean, look, this was not going to be a prolific pass offense anyways. And now adding another receiver to the mix, yeah, maybe great overall for them as an offense, but fantasy-wise, I mean, I'm starting to lose interest in everybody there.
Yeah, other than Saquon Barkley, I'm off the Giants offense completely. I don't understand who's going to be the guy there, who's going to get the targets. And even if they do, they had 12 passing touchdowns last year, 12, right? 12 receiving touchdowns. And why everybody's all excited about Daniel Jones again? Why? What's going to be different? The offensive line, which was the biggest issue with this offense last year, is still the biggest issue with this offense. And Daniel Jones, I think I saw something where he's had 27 career starts and he's thrown like 22 interceptions and 29 fumbles or something insane like that. Just some insane, ridiculous numbers. Like Daniel Jones isn't going to suddenly get significantly better just because you've added some wide receivers. He needs time to throw, and he's not going to have time to throw again. This offense is going to be terrible once again, just like last year. I'm staying away.
Absolutely right. Look, you can add all the weapons you want. Is that really going to improve his accuracy? You know, it's going to make him less likely to cough up the ball once he gets sacked from the blind side? I don't think so. You know, Tony, say what you want about him as a pick. You know, we all thought it was a reach, but it's going to just cut into the already little target share there was going to be for each of these receivers. You know what? Maybe their offense will be fine this year, but I think I'll avoid also. All right, guys, that was our wide receiver breakdown. Winners and losers from the NFL draft, some instant reaction. We also talk about running backs, quarterback, tight end. Don't miss any of our videos this offseason. We're here to help you prepare for the draft season now. No reason to wait. Thanks for watching.